Wow, guys, look at that. That is like a perfect dressing recipe. I think there's only one way that that dressing could be any more perfect. It's beautiful and moist, but you know, anybody knows that dressing is best with a little giblet gravy. Hey guys, welcome back to Texas Cooking Today. On this episode, we're going to be making some cornbread dressing. Some people call this stuffing, but that's only when you put it inside the bird, guys, okay? Now, we have a wonderful dish. I have all of these fabulous ingredients here, and we're going to make some true American heritage food. Dressing, something that went with the turkey. Oh man, we use the flavors of the turkey, but the thing about dressing is regional. Every place you go in the United States, you're going to get a little bit different tweak here and there. Some places where oysters are abundant, you'll find a lot of the people that live there will have oysters in their dressing. Other places, well, if you go to New Orleans, you're going to find probably some andouille sausage in that dressing. If you come to Texas, you'll probably find some pecans in your dressing. So I'll tell you what, every place is, like I said, a little bit regional. All of these fabulous recipes, and the recipe I have comes from Grandpa Trotter. The old man knew how to cook, let me tell you. And I've got a recipe here. This sucker's over 100 years old, and it's delicious, okay? So you've got to try this out. Come over this way. Let's go over these fantastic ingredients we have, and let's make some of the best tasting dressing that you're ever going to put in your mouth. Come on over. Let's go over these fantastic ingredients, and I'm going to start right back here. This is the turkey that I've just finished cooking up. It has been resting now. I have these fabulous drippings in the pan underneath it. Those drippings are an integral part of making a really good quality dressing, so I'm going to be using some of that. In this pan, I have the giblets that came from the turkey as well as the neck, and I cooked it up in this. So I have a beautiful broth in here, and I have these giblets I'm going to make gravy with. But the neck, I took it and shredded it out for neck meat. And we're going to put this neck meat in this dressing, and it makes it absolutely fantastic tasting. I have one recipe of cornbread here, and one recipe of biscuits. And if you notice, I didn't do a pretty job of cutting these or trying to get them nice and thick or anything. No. These are strictly for their structure and their flavor in the same way as this. You want to use a cornbread that is not sweet. No sugar in the cornbread, okay? If it's a sweet cornbread, well, your dressing probably won't come out very good. I have also some eggs here. These are hard-boiled eggs. I'm not using all of this. I'm going to take these eggs, we're going to dice them up. I'll use approximately 1 cup of those 5 eggs for the dressing. And then the rest of it I'm going to use as an additive for my giblet gravy that I'm going to be making. Here I have some sage. I'll be cutting up an onion. When I'm finished, I'm going to want roughly 1 cup to 1 1/4 cup of diced onion. And the same way with this celery, about 1 to 1 1/4 cup of fine diced celery. I have, of course, the neck meat here. I'll chop that up just a little bit more. And back here I have 1 cup of chopped pecans, and this is a 1/2 cup of butter. This is just a fantastic recipe, folks. The flavors that come out of this are sparkling, delicious, and absolutely unbelievable. And if you're looking for a fantastic recipe, you found the right one. Now let's get on to processing this. We're going to make some absolutely delicious right now. In order to make a really good dressing, you have to have a couple of items. first item that you have to have is going to be some cornbread. And the second item that you're going to absolutely have to have is going to be either bread or crackers or biscuits or something. So what we're doing, according to Granddad's recipe here, we're going to be making some biscuits and we're going to make a cornbread. And that's what I have the ingredients out for here. Now, I'm going to start on this side first. What we're dealing with here is cornbread. So I have 1 cup of yellow cornmeal, 3/4 of a cup of flour, 4 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 eggs, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I know that's a lot more right there. I'm just going to pull it out at the time. And 6 ounces or 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk. So that will be our cornbread recipe, and this is really easy to make. We're just going to combine the dry ingredients and then mix in the wet stuff and put it in the pan and cook it. Now that'll cook at 425. It usually takes about 20-25 minutes, in that neighborhood. The recipe we're going to be doing is a simple rolled biscuit. Very good flavor, and it makes a superb dressing. Now this is a really, really neat way to do this. We have 1 cup of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and that's a double-acting baking powder in both cases on both recipes. I have here 3 ounces of buttermilk and 4 tablespoons of cold butter. I'll be using again a 1/2 teaspoon of salt in this recipe as well. After I get those dry ingredients in that bowl, just give them a good spin. Let's start by cracking those eggs into a bowl. There we are. Let's break those yolks and beat them. We don't have to go crazy with it. We just want to get these well combined. And here's where it gets easy. Let's just combine the two. And remember, this isn't cornbread, like I said, for the purpose of making something to eat just by itself. When you make a cornbread like this, it's for the sole purpose of baking something else with it. And there's our cornbread, almost ready to hit the oven. So that cornbread hits the oven. It's 425. We're going to give it plenty of time to rise up and turn a little golden brown on top. If it splits open a little bit, that doesn't matter. And if it overcooks slightly and gets a bit dry, that's only a good thing. So we're looking for browning here in a dry condition. It's time for us to make our biscuits. Now what's going to happen, like you see here, your butter will get caught up on the pastry blender. And what needs to be said here, when it comes to doing this, the colder the butter, the better. You don't want warm butter. Do not cut warm butter into flour. You'll end up with a mess. I've got this mixture with these little crumbs of butter in it, and they're knocked down to about pea size or just slightly larger. Perfect. I want to work in my buttermilk. You can use the pastry blender for this. All I'm doing is getting enough buttermilk in this to get it to kind of stick together. See how it's all coming together now? There we go. I'm going to get my pastry blender out of my way. A little flour on my hands and on my board. If you're using a color-coded cutting board system like I use, that whiteboard is specifically for dairy and bakery. So what I'm doing now is what this whiteboard was actually intended for. For this recipe, I'm not looking for a bunch of big honking biscuits. All I need are just a few to crumble. So what they look like doesn't matter. So instead of cutting nice little round biscuits, I'm not going to bother with that. We're just going to cut out these little squares and we're going to bake them up. Now the oven's already at 425 for our cornbread. And if you get dark brown corners on this, hey, perfect. After all, every time that we brown something, that browning is flavor and it's extra texture and it's wonderful in something like dressing. All I have to do now is get this down in my oven, get it cooking. Here we go. As my items are cooking in the oven, I need to go ahead and cook up my giblets. So I'm going to put all of that right in there. I'm going to add just a little bit of salt. It's about a half a teaspoon. A couple cups of water. If I need to add a little more water, that'll be fine. I can do that. This is a simple preparation. All I have to do is cover this and gently simmer it until the neck meat is falling off of the bone. When I reach that point, then everything is ready. Now guys, let's go ahead and get everything sliced up here. I have separated some of my celery. If you'll notice what I'm doing here, we're making some lengthwise cuts. As I said before, roughly a cup. Oh man, that fresh, crisp, earthy scent that the celery has is so robust. The onion, next thing we need to do. Let's go ahead and get him cut up. There we are. Much better. Now with this, I'm going to want fine dice. On that knife, pinch the blade on the flat portion directly in front of the handle, then wrap your fingers around the remainder. What that does is it gives you a roll control on that knife. The knife doesn't want to roll as much like this, but it'll keep itself under control a little better. You got better control on it that way. See that? Isn't that simple? Now the next thing, we're going to make lengthwise cuts, just like this. I'm cutting that right at 3/16 of an inch wide. At this point, I can turn that onion around, and I have these nice little straight pieces that I can cut into the most perfect dice. Okay guys, let's get ready to cook these up. Now let's go ahead and save back the drippings from that turkey. I don't want a lot of the solid material that's in this, so I'll have a strainer to catch it. Alright guys, go ahead and get some eggs in some water and onto some heat. Now what we want to do is bring these up to a boil. As soon as this comes to a boil, I'm going to turn the heat off, cover it. I'm going to let them stand for 10 minutes, and then we're going to transfer these to some cold water, a bowl of cold water. At that point, the eggs will gently cool down, and after about 10 to 15 minutes that way, we're ready to peel them. Now we're going to need these hard-boiled eggs for both the giblet gravy as well as for our dressing. The giblets and neck have all cooked down nice and tender, and what I'm doing now is I'm simply separating these neck segments, the bones, from one another, and they should come apart easily if you've cooked this well enough. If not, keep cooking it a little longer. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking all that meat off of there. This is all going to be down in the dressing mixture. If you would, just do yours the same way. Go ahead and shred out all the meat on that neck and just save it. If you've ever had the meat on a chicken wing, this is similar in texture, but it's a dark meat, so it gives you that robust flavor. Well, that ugly old turkey neck was good for something after all, wasn't it? Alright, I'm not going to go at it any further than that. I've done a good enough job, and there's my neck meat. Beautiful, a wonderful addition to this dish. Okay guys, we're going to do a little bit of pre-cooking on our celery and our onion. Get that butter in a pan and get it melting. And as soon as it melts, go ahead, put those vegetables in there and get them cooked over a medium-low heat until they turn nice and tender for you. Our butter is pretty much melted out, so I'm going to go ahead, get these veggies in there. We're going to let those cook, and right now I need to go ahead and take care of the cornbread. I've taken about about 2/3 of the cornbread out of that pan, and I'm just putting it in here so I can crumble it up. And you don't want big old chunks like this, okay? You want some little pieces like this, and that's just perfect. Take your biscuits and crumble them in the same way. All right, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? As soon as the rest of my my vegetables finish cooking up over here and get nice and tender. Then we're going to get it all mixed together and start baking it. It's just a matter of getting these cooked down a little bit. And I want to cook them until the onions start to turn a little bit translucent. What I have here is a 9x13 glass baking pan. I'm going to be cooking up my dressing in this, but I don't really want it to stick a whole lot. So what I'm going to do to help prevent that sticking is I'm going to grease and flour it. So as you see, get it spread all over your pan. After you have that spread on your pan, watch this. There, I'm all cleaned up. Isn't that simple? Put your flour in and work that flour around it until it's coated all the way around. There we have it. One pan greased and floured and ready to cook with. Right now I have this heavenly aroma that is just lifting through my home. The smell of this butter and these vegetables cooking. It's divine. Guys, we are nearing the end of this. It's very simple. I have this which has been cooking down and is looking lovely. I need to put my nuts in that. And I'm just going to bring them up in temperature just a little bit. We now have our cornbread and the biscuits here. Let's go ahead and put all of this right in there, all at once. I'm going to add in my meat. I'm going to add my eggs. I'm going to dust in some sage. How much of this ground sage do you use? I would say don't use more than a tablespoon, guys. The next thing I need to do, we need to get some liquid into this to hydrate it and turn it into the wonderful thing it can be. With that liquid that I boiled the neck and the giblets in, I'm just going to ladle out a little of that. As I'm mixing this, I want it to become thoroughly moist throughout, but I do not, and repeat, I do not want this mushy or completely saturated over. Now my turkey drippings, I'm going to mix that well so I can get some of the fat as well as some of the juices from underneath. Now I have a nice condition where everything is thoroughly moist, but again, it's not soupy, it's not mushy. There are plenty of chunks of everything in there. It's all quite visible. So that way my textures are on. Remember I told you that texture is an important thing. It's at 350 degrees. I'll put this down in my nice little dish here. That's just a matter of leveling this out, getting it nice and smooth and even, and then we're going to get it in that oven and bake it up. So I have a beautiful dressing here, a lot of color in it. Got that green, we got some purple going on in there, little white specks from the egg, some yellow specks from the egg. From here, it's a trip to the oven, 350 degrees for 45 minutes. Well, I've just pulled this from the oven. You can see it's still bubbling on the edges. That's normal. It should have a light springiness to it. Okay, see that? Perfect. It's beautiful. It's lightly browned on top. This one came out lovely. Now I can't wait to taste it. Oh man. Hey, there it is, guys. That's all there was. Nothing like a little holiday dressing. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It's still moist, delicious, crumbly, just like I was wanting it. Magnificent. Oh man. This is one of the things I would always have extra. When Mom would do the turkey and dressing and giblet gravy, I would always have more dressing. It was always so good. This, fantastic. Good texture, popping flavors. I mean, just jump out and smack you kind of flavors. Really, really good. This is the kind of recipe that I want to get every time I get dressing. And so often I'm disappointed. It's usually some mushy, nasty compound. This is real, and it's good. Folks, thank you very much for watching Texas Cooking Today, and also to my subscribers, I would like to say thank you very, very much. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and guys, please share my videos. That'll help me grow my audience. You guys have a nice day, and goodbye. Hey guys, thank you for watching Texas Cooking Today. Do appreciate it. If you would, please subscribe. If you like this, just click like down there, and if you would, I would really appreciate it if you add me to your favorites. Thank you.